The flow of people is slowed, so why don't we go ahead and get started? Once again, good morning. Jen is pointing out to me, she hasn't joined every call, but we have picked up a few new names and faces here and there. So, it might be a good idea to do some quick introductions, and I can start on the SRPC side. Many of you have seen Zuzi on these calls for a long time, over the last couple of years. She is still working for SRPC for now, but she's starting to taper off her hours as she gets into the summer. She's back in Europe, traveling in Norway at the moment, and she is working her way towards grad school in the fall. So you're going to see less and less of her. And then a new face to introduce. Tyler DiStefano has been working with us on some of our scanning work over the last several months at this point, right, Tyler? Yeah. But he is officially joining us and sort of moving into the office a little bit for picking up some of our economic development work. So you will start to see more of him, and look for some of the emails with notes or agendas or things like that to come from Tyler as we get him onboarded a little bit more. So with that, I'll just call you guys out in the order you're on my screen. So you can say hi in a short introduction. So Shanna, you're first.
Shanna Saunders from the city of Rochester.
Jen. Sis.
Forgot I was muted. Hi, Jen Sis, Stratford Regional Planning Commission Director.
Joe.
Joe Friedman, Town of Durham.
Paul Deshane.
Hi, project manager with the town of Newington.
Warren.
Warren Daniel, New Hampshire Small Business Development Center, business advisor.
Ben.
Ben Van Camp, the Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Jen Kimball.
I'm Jen Kimball with the Regional Economic Development Center, which is in Raymond, and we do similar activities to as far as economic development as SRPC for the region just south and a little bit of west of you guys. And I just want to apologize. I'm trying to be here as much as possible, but I have a conflicting meeting every week at 9:30. So I just want to apologize in advance to everybody about that when I jump off.
Jenny.
Hi, Tyler. Nice to meet you. I'm Jenny Lupi. I'm the director of the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts, which is a division of the state's Department of Natural and Cultural Resources.
Thank you. Mikael.
Yes, good morning, Tyler. Nice to meet you. My name is Mikael Pyrtel, and I'm with New Hampshire BEA.
Robin.
I'm Robin. I'm Summersworth.
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Tatarzik. I'm a regional planner with the Rockingham Planning Commission.
Stephanie. Stephanie, did we lose you? Looks like Stephanie's frozen. She's with the Office of Planning and Development, and if she unfreezes in a minute, we can hop back to her. Barb?
Barb Holstein, SRPC Commissioner, Rochester.
Nick?
Nick Taylor, Executive Director of the Workforce Housing Coalition of the Greater Seacoast.
Darren?
Darren Winham, Econ Dev, Exeter, and coming from my sunroom and looking at the saddest pair of eyes from my border collie because he's not out here with me.
Natalie?
Natalie Moles, SRPC.
Stephanie, are you working now?
Yes, sorry, I keep bouncing around. Good morning, Stephanie from the Office of Planning and Development.
Paul Giuliano?
Good morning, Paul Giuliano, Great Bay Community College, Rochester. Also Rochester Economic Development Commission and Planning Board.
Okay. And then who's on the RPC account? Is that Tim?
That's Tim, but I think I just saw him walk by my office. So I don't think
Okay.
he's there at the moment.
He might be in listen only mode then. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome. We don't have a long agenda today, but where yesterday would normally have been one of our BEA briefings with Commissioner Caswell, I wanted to see if Mikael was available
Yes.
to give us any updates on particularly the InvestNH program, since my understanding was we're getting at least somewhat close to those rules and procedures being released. But Mikael, if you've got anything else to pass along by way of an update, feel free.
Sure. Well, first, if the commissioner were here, he would thank everyone for their involvement, phone calls, and letter writing also. I was at an event last week for the Manufacturing Extension Partnership in Rochester, and we covered workforce, labor issues, and housing at the tail end also. So James is right. We are getting close to finalizing rules, and our target is still the end of June. I can take questions now, and anything that I can't answer, I'm usually pretty fast about following up. And I'll be here for the duration of the call as well. Thank you.
Great. So I guess that end of June sort of timeline that the commissioner had been speaking about, that was like the program will open for applications at the end of June, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So questions for Mikael? Darren.
Hey, Mikael, thanks for doing this as usual.
Sure, of course.
So just briefly explain who's having the discussions about what's going to go in the application, like who's in the room, who's taking input. And my big question is there likely to be a workforce or affordable component to it?
Okay. Actually,
and what does that look like? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have that level of detail. I will probably not be in the room, but I will find out for you. If you can do me a favor, though, if you can send me those questions via email, and I should be able to get an answer to all of them in terms of setup.
Are they still taking input, do you think?
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe if there are follow-up items, drop them in the chat, and I can pull one set of those questions and send them to Mikael afterwards if there are things.
Do it right now.
Follow up on.
Thank you.
Taylor mentioned that you guys are going to be looking to hire, it sounded like at least a project manager to handle the nuts and bolts of the program, if not other people to assist them. Have you guys made that decision and brought those people on board?
So to my knowledge, the apps are still active, and no appointments have been made so far.
Gotcha.
And we're looking for, I believe, a director and I think one or two assistants, but I can check that for you.
are those people going, I mean, is the plan for those people to be the ones responsible for finalizing the regulations? Or are those happening in parallel?
Right. So I believe they'll be in charge of administering the program. I haven't heard that we are waiting for the new hires to help with rules and regs and our policies.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I just want to back up. I just want to back up what Darren had said. You know, we have spent a lot of time in this group talking about business issues and talking about impediments to growth. One of those impediments to growth is affordable housing. Is that availability of housing? Sure, that's a part of the problem. But if there's not going to be a below market rate component of that, I'm not sure it is going to help businesses that much. The only thing it will do is potentially, with the increase in the supply of housing, maybe bring down the cost of some housing, probably not. But, you know, we feel in this committee, and I think I'm speaking for what we've talked about over the past, you know, certainly 18 months, is the lack of affordable housing. And the ability for small businesses to be able to hire and retain employees and have those employees be able to live in the area. Now with the high cost of gas, to travel from Milton, New Hampshire to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, you know, is that much more expensive. So from my point of view, without an affordable housing component, I mean, this isn't really going to help small businesses all that much.
Right. So I think you'll see that there is a affordable housing component with this package.
And I guess we'll need to wait and see what the actual rules look like, but it sounded like, yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading between the lines from Commissioner last time he briefed. But he made it sound like if there was some other federal, state, or local requirement for a percentage of affordable units, whether that was from your funding source, low-income housing tax credits, whether that was from some local zoning regulation, it sounded like you might be able to demonstrate, hey, we're complying with this requirement from somebody else. And that would satisfy as the controlling portion. But then there might have to be other conversations about how to get those requirements in for projects that were not subject to those requirements already. Joe?
Yes, thank you. So there's $100 million. I understand $5 million of it goes towards planning and zoning rework. And a lot of it is for grants for housing developments. And this concept of the affordable housing has been brought up many times. Do you know how much of the $100 million is going towards affordable housing, or what percentage of the money is going to require? If it's going to a market rate housing development, are they required to have 20% say affordable housing? Are they required to have any? Is there any affordable piece or number that is associated with the affordable housing?
There we go. Okay, thank you for the question. I can get that information for you. So the $5 million, though, that component, I believe is for demolition costs. For the zoning package, I'll get that number for you. But the $5 million, I know is for demolition costs also. And I know there is an affordable housing component to this, because we certainly don't talk about housing unless we're also talking about workforce housing also. So all that is going to be baked in. But if you give me your questions, then I can find out for you offline. Straight away.
Sure. And just to follow, if you don't mind, the affordable housing piece, the only way affordable housing works is with a subsidy. You can't build affordable housing with market rates. So this is a big pot of money available for a subsidy, whereas market rate housing now affords itself because it's so high end.
Right. Yes, correct.
A lot of this was in the proposal, the second round of proposals to the executive council, the basics. So that link I just dropped into the chat is what was put together by Taylor and the governor for the second time it went to executive council. So a lot of the basics are there, you know, the deadlines and details, and the application process obviously is not, that's what's underway now. But the primary target for a lot of these programs is for folks that are 80% of the local median income. You know, the population we've been talking about. So there is 5 million for zoning help to have outside consultants review your zoning and make suggested changes or suggestions for changes. And then there is 5 million for demolition as well. So if you click that link, that has a lot of this.
But that 20% in there, Ben, and I have the same thing you have, and my question, I guess, to Mikael was, is that, I mean, that certainly is what Taylor and the governor put forward to the executive council, but my question is who's having that discussion, and is that going to change? Because that sounds pretty fair. I mean, 20% is quite a bit. At least I think it's fair, but I'm just wondering if people are in those rooms and saying, geez, we have to get this money out so fast that 20% will change to 10%, et cetera. And I just want to know if we have a seat at the table just to sort of throw our 2 cents in, maybe as a seater.
Darren, I think that is something that is a big concern. You know, this is a lot of money to get out the door in a relatively short period of time because it all has a, you know, clock ticking on it. So I think that's where Taylor was looking for latitude in his first proposal. So I think you're right. Someone needs to kind of keep their eye on the prize here a little bit and make sure that we don't try to get the money just out the door and not have it used for the right purpose.
I think too, I don't mean to be Debbie Downer with this, but I think that having been in this housing conversation for 23, 25 years, I'm unique in that I have been very slow in fully appreciating the demands on municipal and town infrastructure. So I think for us as economic development managers, we have to be very aware that we can't just advocate for housing without the infrastructure support for those homes too. At least 2 of the communities in the Seacoast have already been confronted with major municipal water issues. And there's been some discussion, at least as it's reported, which doesn't mean it's necessarily completely the truth, but that public officials have been quite surprised that the demand on municipal services, and I'm not talking ambulance and police, there's that side of it too. I'm talking about water and sewer and roads and sidewalks, but specifically on the Seacoast, already the issue of water and sewer have emerged as important factors that municipalities haven't felt completely prepared to grapple with. So I think it's incumbent upon us to at least have that on our radar as well. It's not just build a house, you know what I mean? And then you have a home.
Yes, thank you, Robin. That's right. Yep, exactly.
The way we're planning on using the money, if we get it, we have the developer looking for 220 units. And right now he has 25% affordability with that project. And we're planning on using it for infrastructure in terms of putting a light in there, widening the road. And if we get our piece, that's how we're going to use it. And by the way, just to put a point on the housing thing, I'm not sure if you folks are familiar with a company called Vapotherm, which is in Exeter, in the Strato Industrial Park. Very unfortunately, they are citing not being able to find Joe Q regular manufacturing worker. So their C-suite guys and their R&D is staying in Exeter. Every other piece of that company is going to Mexico. So we have workforce issues and we have housing issues. So right on.
Do they need us to come and visit them and to assess the situation?
I will be at Vapotherm tomorrow, so I'm part of that crew. That's right.
Is that just going to be a retraining, you think? No?
No.
Are we trying to save it?
What we can, you know,
My
yes,
understanding is the die is cast, but
yeah.
anyway, thanks for doing that though. I appreciate you guys doing that. It's a big deal.
Okay.
That's great, but historically, the state of New Hampshire has very little to offer when we talk about, you know, other states have tax benefits to offer. The state of New Hampshire, their retention budget is very slim. So, but yeah, we thank you for going there, Mikael.
It's about time, Chris.
So sitting there chatting with Reed, and I keep looking at my watch thinking, I think I have something at 9. Clearly my battery in my watch died because it still says that it's 8:10.
Very convenient.
Who still has a battery in their watch? That's the question.
Hey.
So I could have stayed home today.
Kidding with you, Chris.
I appreciate that Paul has not said anything. He's the only one that's not laughing or said anything about it.
So, Mikael, to get back around to sort of the rules and rulemaking, do you know, like, are they planning to just sort of release this all at once, and when they open the applications, the floodgates are rolling? Or do you think that there's going to be at least some pre-release of, you know, here are the materials, here's a save the date for when stuff goes live? Because I know we already have a lot of interest. You know, we're hearing about stuff from our municipalities. I'm sure it's the same with all 260 towns and, you know, however many counties, and every unit of government is looking at this and going, but when am I going to know? When am I going to know whether I can apply for the planning grants? When am I going to know that I can apply for the 30 million in implementation money?
Okay.
So I think
Right.
the more we can share for at least, like, all right,
Timing.
June 14th, keep
Known
an eye
release.
out for a soft announcement. And
Right,
the
right. Okay.
21st, you know,
Yeah.
the full rules will be available and you'll have a week to sort of read through things. And then, you know, the June 30th, it'll be open for applications or something like that. That
Something
timeline
like-
would help
yeah.
us
Okay.
be able to set expectations if it exists or if you know it yet.
Okay. I can find out, and that schedule makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll find out. Thank you.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, sorry, and I'm totally interrupting Tim, who was trying to speak at the same time. Mikael, you talked about rulemaking process. Is this the traditional administrative rulemaking process and going through jail car, and will there be a public comment period? So I think that would be something that we would want to keep an eye on.
Okay. Thank you. I'm writing that down now.
So I'll just jump in on the planning grant, James, since you brought it up. I said it in other formats. I don't know if I said it to this group, but if we have multiple municipalities coming forward for planning grants, there's got to be a way to coordinate those so that half a dozen different municipalities don't go to a half a dozen different consultants to do essentially the same thing. You know what I mean? There's got to be an efficiency there that if they're all looking to modify planning zoning in some way, we got to be able to find a way to not reinvent the wheel multiple times across the town, making lots of consultants rich but not really using the money as effectively as we could. So just, I'm hoping they'll keep that in mind as they administer these planning grants.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, Tim, because I chatted with a planning consultant this weekend. He told me he's booking 2024 projects right now because he's booked for the remainder of this year and into next year. And there's really like 3 planning consultants in this state at this point.
Yeah.
So that's, and he said he wasn't going to take any of these projects because he didn't think that he had the capacity because of his staffing struggles. And that he also said that he doesn't want to fight with towns that don't want density to try to figure out ways that they can look like they're applying for grants to get density and then not actually implement the regs that are recommended.
Interesting point.
I mean, to that point though, Tim, that would raise questions in my mind about what the procurement process is going to look like, because either you sort of need to come in with your group knowing, all right, we've got these 6 municipalities who are reasonably close together, reasonably the same size. It makes sense for them to all work on this together because the zoning maps that they adopt are going to look somewhat similar. You sort of need to either develop that project up front so that you're going in for all of those on one grant under a lead applicant, which would potentially require some flexibility in funding amounts. You can't say, all right, we'll give every municipality $15,000 and then say, well, our max award is $15,000 and we can't find a way to make it work for 6 of you. But then also, if that's going to trigger locals procurement processes and they would all have to go out to bid for their consultants or contractors or what have you. I know some programs have been non-compete for the RPCs or things like that, but and Mikael, at least I'm not trying to funnel this directly to us, but from a project development standpoint, there are things like that to figure out. And if we want to take advantage of those economies of scale, we can't just say there's a max award amount total and stick to a hard cap without having thought about that. Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what Tim just said, and also Robin mentioned that first of all, if there's going to be an effort to create a model ordinance that then is customized to specific communities' needs, that there needs to be a dichotomy of towns that have infrastructure and towns that don't. I'll go back to my days in Stratham. We had a great zoning ordinance that had great incentives relative to density, but we never brought in the infrastructure, so it became ineffectual. There needs to be a recognition that it's hand in glove. Without the infrastructure, you can't get the density. Without the density, you can't get the affordability, et cetera. So the model or however it's structured, it has to make that recognition, because everyone seems to think that, oh, just build more houses. And it just doesn't work that way, because then it's disproportionately put on communities that have the infrastructure versus the ones that have elected not to.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and thank you, Paul, for saying that, because that's what I was going to, talk about as well, as what Tim and Robin brought up, that, this regional, component can't be overlooked for the infrastructure. You can't get, across the street without, excuse me, without the proper infrastructure. You can't get it to the finish line. It's great and to have, tons of money available for housing, but you got to turn the page over and see, well, what are the other components of that in order to make the whole thing work. So, it's good that there's that many thoughts that hopefully, those types of discussions can be incorporated into, how are we going to do this? And especially with the lack of consultants, reinventing the wheel is infuriating for planners. So, hopefully these conversations can be brought to the table and make a difference, at least to try to organize, some of these programs and these money. There's going to be such a flurry of, like you say, everybody wanting the money and the money. But, there really has to be, a methodology to it, and make sure that all the components are being addressed at this one time, once in a lifetime investment.
Jen?
Yeah, so Mikael, this is more just kind of like general feedback or ideas for that rulemaking process. So I know New Hampshire Housing has a lot of experience in doing the municipal grant for planning and zoning. So it would definitely be worth reaching out to Ben Frost and making sure he is involved in that rulemaking process. For, just what works, what doesn't work. Some other things to, keep in mind would also be some flexibility on who the grantee is and who contracting is done through. So for example, in the coastal regions, coastal zone, DES will have municipal grants, but they'll just directly contract. Like, for example, we've got several with Dover and other communities where rather than the municipality have the burden of the grant administration, DES will directly contract with the Regional Planning Commission on the municipality's behalf. So that is an option. Homeland Security does the same thing for hazard mitigation plans. So that helps kind of resolve some of those procurement processes issues. But that's the other side, is that municipalities are going to be beholden to their own procurement policies, and they have different thresholds from municipality to municipality. And so that's another piece to take into consideration with the timing and how things can get out the door. Chris saying that there's at least one private consultant that is not going to be partaking. That leaves only a couple others. There are programs like CDFA. They do direct non-compete for working with your regional planning commission. New Hampshire Housing did the same thing for their planning and zoning grants. That'd be a way to kind of get things moving faster and out the door. So just some like speed round thoughts for rulemaking.
Okay,
And I
thank you,
think
Jen.
the HSEM grants, not only take the administration off of the local municipality, they make it a lot easier for us to administer too. If we've got, those 5 or 6 communities who are all on the same grant, they may be at different stages of the process, but the fact that we've got one that's out in front, so we've been able to start billing, from just an operational standpoint, it makes it a lot easier for us to run, especially those small towns where the grants are, what, 6,000 per municipality for the smallest. I could not see it running nearly as efficiently unless we had them bundled.
Yeah, and it's less for the state to administer that way as well. To that end, another thought would be just in terms of like flexibility on the applicant, not just require it to be a municipality, but allow counties to also apply, so that if you have multiple municipalities that are looking to collaborate, then the county can be the lead applicant. And then that resolves some of the kind of the financial figuring out of how do you split things, or which municipality is the lead applicant, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Good idea.
Other thoughts, comments, questions from Mikael? All right, not seeing a whole lot. Mikael, I'll be sure to download and send over the stuff that made it in the chat just in case. So you have your follow-up items. Anybody have anything else you want to talk about?
James, I had one.
Yeah, Paul.
Just a follow up from the last meeting in the Patriots yearbook ad solicitation. I didn't know if anyone on the call had the final numbers of participants. Last I count, we had 7 municipalities sign on. Does anyone else know if that number grew from there?
Still trying to get PDA and Hampton. I sent an email to Paul Breen Friday, and I'll follow up with a phone call today, and I'll see if I can't get John Certinios, who owns Gallyhash, and get the Hampton group to see if they can throw in $1,000.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the exact numbers. I know some of you copied me in your responses, but I think most of that was going straight to Mike Scala, so he would have the more exact count than I would.
Sorry, can you tell what towns are participating?
Which ones are? Yeah, I think Exeter, Rochester, Dover were definitely on board. I heard back from Newmarket. Paul, you said Newington is on board.
Portsmouth.
The list I had Dover, Newmarket, Exeter, Rochester, Portsmouth, the CEDC, and Newington.
Okay.
Thank you. It may help try to get Durham either for next year or when.
So Barb just dropped in the chat asking if childcare is still on the table to talk about. I think childcare is absolutely on the table to talk about. My daughter's head teacher had her last day on Friday because she officially got poached to start an in-center or an in-business center for a local business. So I think that's something we can definitely circle back to. Barb, if you have a speaker in mind, maybe we can touch base offline and check schedules and see who it is. And we can try and get that set up for one of our calls in June.
Good, fine. I have a speaker and she's definitely wants to talk before they get into a call.
Before they get into a coalition for
well,
what?
The childcare people are having problems as well. Yeah, like you were just talking about. And she would love to be able to be part of this conversation of businesses and people that have some sway. So she would like to come to one of these meetings, and I didn't want to invite her if there was going to be no room for her to even comment. So
yeah, we had Jackie Cowell and Celissa Hoyt talked to this group back in, I think it was February, early March at the latest, about childcare issues and about some of the initiatives that they were working on. So yeah, I think we definitely have the bandwidth to, further those conversations as we're able.
okay, I'll talk to you offline.
Sounds great. Anything else for the group this morning? All right, seeing none, I think we'll wrap things up a little bit early. Thank you all for your time. Mikael, thank you for the info and for following up on some of those questions. Mikael just dropped his email in the chat if any of you don't have it and are looking to follow up with him. All right, thanks all. We will see you in 2 weeks.